Jason Brown, you won my heart when I went to see you not too long ago, and you made me proud.
Jason Brown, a former NFL offensive lineman for the St. Louis Rams, had a 5-year, $37 million contract when he left it all to pursue his dreams. Here's his story.
At one point, number 6, Jason Brown, was one of the best centers in the NFL. At one point, he had a 5-year, $37 million contract with the St. Louis Rams. And at one point, he decided it was all meaningless and just walked away from football.
My agent, he told me, he said, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. And I looked right back at him and I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
So what could possibly trump the NFL? You wouldn't believe. Jason Brown quit football to be a plain old farmer, even though he never farmed a day in his life. This week, Jason finished harvesting his first 5-acre plot of sweet potatoes.
When you see them pop up out of the ground, man, it's the most beautiful thing that you could ever see.
He says he has never felt more successful.
Not in man's standards, but in God's eyes. When I think about a life of greatness, I think about a life of service. Which leads us here. Yes.
See, his plan for this farm, which he calls First Fruits Farm, is to donate the first fruits of every harvest to food pantries. Today, it's all 5 acres, 100,000 pounds of sweet potatoes.
Love is the most wonderful currency that you can give anyone.
Please welcome Jason Brown.
So let me ask you a question. Was being a professional football player something that you dreamed about when you were a little kid?
To tell you the truth, it really wasn't even on my radar. It was always my dream to follow after the footsteps of my father, who was a landscape architect. And we planted flowers, we planted beautiful shrubs and trees, and we mowed lawns. We gave homes curb appeal. Something about I think every single one of you can identify with.
So, you've been busy making curb appeal. What in the world happened that helped you make this change to become a farmer?
Yes, well, there were 2 turning points. And in 2011, that was my last year in the NFL. And halfway through the season, I was benched.
What in the world does benched mean?
Well, benched means that the head coach called me to his office and said, Jason, I don't think you're good enough anymore. I'm going to give your job to your backup. I'm going to give your job to someone else.
And you were making $30 million and he said you weren't good enough anymore? What's his problem? Well, maybe you were how old when this happened?
I was 27 years old at the time.
Well, when you got benched,
Yes,
was
ma'am.
this a turning point in your life for you?
It definitely was a turning point for me because after I signed that big contract with St. Louis, we were living the American dream. We had a huge mansion, 11,000 square feet. We had the fancy cars, the fancy clothes, and my ego was just on cloud 9. My ego was untouchable. But the thing is, it's very hard to stay grounded when you're up so high. So of course, that was such a humbling moment in my life where it really brought me back down to humility.
Well, 11,000 square feet, honey. Did you get lost in that house?
We played hide and go seek with the kids, on numerous occasions. It was a lot of fun.
So, bottom line, what you're saying is your priorities were really out of whack, right?
Yes. At that time, it was all about money, all about career and entitlements. I was working long hours and really not spending that much time with my wife and my children. So the home environment, it was very neglected. And even when I got home, I didn't have enough energy to even play with my children. My son would say, "Daddy, I want to play." And I'm like, just let me sit down and just, gather myself before I knew it. It was bedtime. And really, my family, they took the brunt of what happened.
And so it wasn't about money anymore, right?
Yes. In my humility, I told myself that from this point forward, every decision that I make as a man is going to be based on faith and family. And that's what comes first.
Well, you told me. We have a value statement in our company that says God, family, and business. So you kind of dig that?
Oh, yes. Those are great priorities. That's a great mission.
You told me something told us something a while ago that I think is interesting and I want to pursue it. You said when this happened, you were 27. Why was 27 significant for you?
27 is the age when I lost my older brother, Lunsford Bernard Brown II. He was killed in Iraq on September 20th, 2003. And he was 7 years older than I. And when I turned 27, it made me take a deeper look at my life and where I was at that time. And exactly what I was doing with my life. And my brother, he lived a life of service. He was killed serving his country. And there's no greater deed that a man can do than give his life for his country.
I want you to hear what you just said. Say it again.
Yes, ma'am. I said there's no greater deed that a man can do than to serve his country and to serve those around him. So of course, it made me look at my life, and I pretty much said, Jason, what are you doing right now that's so great with your life? And when I had the money and the entitlements on a pedestal, I really had to take a step back.
And so you decided it was time for you to be of service to your family and
to my community.
To your community.
Yes,
well, what in the world inspired you, honey, to be a farmer? I am a farm girl. What inspired you to be a farmer?
Well, if you told me 3 years ago that, Jason, you're going to be a farmer, I would have said, you're crazy, all right? That's not me. But yet, in that humility, I fell back on my faith and my relationship with God and Jesus Christ. And he started to reveal to me the path that he wanted me to take. And so he took me to the book of Genesis, wherein there was a famine throughout the land. And he shared with Joseph that he could actually farm and store away food to feed the people. He also took me to the book of Matthew, chapter 25, where Jesus reinstated Peter. And he said, do you love me? He said, of course you know that I love you. Well, he said, well, feed my people and take care of my sheep. And I took that literally, not just to feed God's people the word of God, but to feed them food, literally food.
And so you left the NFL and you took this fast track back home, which is where?
Back in North Carolina.
And you bought a farm in North Carolina. Now, how did you find that farm, darling?
Well, lucky enough for me, I solicited the services of my mother, who is a real estate agent.
Oh my goodness. Where's North Carolina?
Hey guys.
I want you to go back home and recruit his mother.
Yes. Unfortunately, she's not a part of the Keller Williams family, but when I share with her how awesome you guys are, I'm sure she'll come in open arms.
Let me ask you this, how big is your farm?
The farm is 1,000 acres.
Is it pretty?
It's the most beautiful place I've ever laid my eyes on. And I never knew that there were 1,000 continuous acres that a person could buy. I mean, I knew out west, possibly a ranch, maybe out in, Montana, but on the East Coast, that's pretty rare.
To find contiguous
Yes.
acreage. So you spent the first year getting it in place. What did you have to do to get it all fixed up?
Well, I learned a lot of useful skills. I learned a little bit of carpentry. I learned electrical work. I learned plumbing. Pretty much a farmer has to be a jack of all trades.
Well, how much experience did you have in farming? The video said you didn't have any.
It was absolutely zero, other than my landscaping experience as a child.
So how'd you learn?
Well, I learned watching videos and through YouTube. I know there's a lot of silly stuff that you can watch out there, but yeah, there's a lot of educational tools out there as well. So I transitioned my skills from watching film and football and studying and preparing for my opponents, and I transitioned that to learning something new, which is farming. So it comes very natural for me to watch a video and then emulate what I see, and I transitioned that over to the farm field.
Well, did you ask for help from other farmers?
Oh, definitely. Yes, I definitely asked for a lot of help from local farmers and family members and friends. And it was just the most awesome thing where people came out and they helped. I mean, they offered so much knowledge, so much wisdom, and you really have to rely on your network and your contacts. It was an awesome thing.
So they believed in what you were doing, and it was really a labor of love.
Yes.
Well, in the video, you talked about your first crop. So why was that very first crop so magical for you?
Well, it was like me having my first child all over again. You look out over a sweet potato field and you don't see anything but vines because the potatoes are under the ground. And when they popped up out of the ground, it was the most beautiful thing that I had ever seen because it was also revealing the fruits of my labor firsthand.
You really think sweet potatoes popping up is beautiful?
Yes, I do. It was an awesome experience.
Well, I just love the name of your farm. First Fruits Farm. I just love that. So tell us about your very first harvest. How many acres and all that stuff?
Well, even though we have 1,000 acres, we started off very small and we planted 5 acres of sweet potatoes. And we learned a lot from the other local farmers as well. And actually, the sweet potato slips were donated. A lot of the labor that it took to get the sweet potatoes into the ground for the planting process, those were donated as well. So it was just an awesome experience and also a community experience as well.
So how many pounds of sweet potatoes did you harvest and what did you do with it?
Well, our first harvest yielded 120,000 pounds of sweet potatoes.
Wow.
120,000